And good morning. It's the 15th of February 2021. World still screwed. Shock news. Yeah. Ooh. So it's a little bit warmer this morning, which is unfortunate because I came out, clothed for Arctic bear weather, and it just wasn't. River's still very busy. Yes. Whoop. Yes. Do not get caught on a microphone cable. So yeah, it's out in the woods again today, trying to get a 2-for-1 session going, where I've been shooting bits of B-roll to try and make it a bit more interesting. So, you be the judge. If the videos start to get more visually interesting, do let me know. That's what comments are for. Yeah. So. Yeah. So today I decided I scripted today's a little bit. So, yeah. And it's funny how these things all come down to definition. Like, in some circumstances you can't say communism, as in the idea of living in a communal society, as espoused by Marx, which is not in itself a bad idea. The only thing that trips up communism working for everybody is largely a few very, very greedy rich people who tend to get involved in the mix no matter what you do. Or some people want to differentiate their success by luxury. Nobody seems to go, right, this is a middling level of okay. My children are safe, they're educated, they're housed, they're happy, which is the basic human drive. And then you've got things like, you can't say socialism, which is the idea that the state takes a hand in maintaining a minimum level of well-being for its citizens. You can't say that in America because people think communism when you say it. So there's a lot of places in the world where you also couldn't say capitalist. If you look at the current state of Russia in the grip of oligarchs that have taken like a large proportion of the country's wealth out by allowing people to become desperately poor. And when the state, after the collapse of communism, issued shares in all the state-run factories and utilities and stuff like that, those people were so poor that they sold their shares in the state that their parents and grandparents had worked for pennies on the dollar. So you got an oligarchy. That's not the same necessarily as capitalism, but capitalism does believe that market forces will shake everything out and it will be a fair deal and better run for everybody. That's clearly not the case. If you're paying people poverty wages in a society that has no welfare system for people that can't get a job, and if you've got a welfare state, then essentially it's in the government's interest to make sure that jobs stay in your country. Whereas if you don't have much of a welfare state and it can't be lived on, there's nothing to stop an employer paying poverty wages. So I think we here in the West, so I can communicate easily across to America and possibly even easily across to the Soviet Union, who, the concept, or the former Soviet Union, and around the world, and China and places like that. I think everybody wants a system that works. I think the vast majority of people don't want a few astonishingly greedy people to have everything and then dole out poverty wages, so there is such a divide between rich and poor that they can afford to spend a lot of money on militarised policing. So it is essentially a form of indentured servitude to be a citizen in that country. I believe, and what would, it's a fairy tale at the moment, but I believe that everywhere should be the greatest place to live. A citizen of Earth, whether they're in Dubai, whether they're in Northern Australia, whether they're in South America somewhere, in Argentina or Terra del Fuego or China or India, should have at least a reasonable expectation of life. Being sick shouldn't make you poor. There should be some way of getting a roof over your head, even if that means a certain amount of labour and, access to food that isn't trying to kill you. So yeah, in In response to that, and it's not the perfect phrase right now, I'm going to call it uber-capitalism. Capitalism that has gone so far that it's actually creating a kind of oligarchy where the fabulously rich are so divorced from the existence of the fabulously poor, they can exist in the same city as desperately poor people that are starving to death. And the system allows them to maintain such a level of distance that they can just get on with it. Personally, I know that the best night's sleep of my life would come, you know, I'm going to be an old man if this ever happens, but, you know, if I go to sleep knowing that every child on planet Earth had access to the basics, what I define as the basics: food, shelter, clothing, water, clean water, education, and access to information. And then I will sleep like a rock for about a month. So we're going to have to start calling it uber-capitalism or oligarchism, because most countries have got some form of oligarchy going on, and that's pretty depressing. You know, the UK definitely got the super rich knocking around, you know, and if you are fantastically rich, it isn't because you've come up with a specifically good idea. It's because you've managed to cheat somewhere, someone or something out of enough money to make a significant profit on each of your widgets. And generally speaking, the people that think that that's okay generally tend to be, you know, the people that are reasonably smart to start with, surround themselves by much smarter people, underpay those smart people and the people making their widgets, and yeah, and are okay with it. You know, so I wouldn't say Elon Musk is the smartest person on earth, but he's bought enough smart people's time to create some stuff that he wouldn't have otherwise been able to create, leverage that, and is paying people less than they're worth, otherwise he wouldn't be that rich. Kind of the same with Bill Gates. Were all those programmers for the original Windows being paid really well? I don't think so. Were they paid in stock options for the thing they created? Nope. Thomas Edison, you know, and those people all started off with a significant amount of money, you know, with the exception of the Apple founders, and possibly with the exception of Alan Sugar, even though it would be nice if he'd actually produced something that was decent, but he's come by it largely honestly. But I suspect he paid his people as little as possible. So in order to become very wealthy, you have to have, by default, screwed over a bunch of people. You know, you need to understand that. And, you know, a more socialist system where everybody was paid a fair wage, and before you start, some people don't get to choose what they do because of family circumstances, because of economic environment where they're growing up. They're not able to do homework, they're not nourished properly, they're not, you know, they don't have the better start that a lot of middle class and upper class people get. They just don't have it. And to pretend that it's the fault of anybody individually is ridiculous. Nobody wants to be unemployed. People would far rather work in the vast, you know, 99.99% of cases. But sometimes it happens that, you know, the welfare system pays better, and that's the minimum the government think you can live on, than the minimum that an employer thinks you can live on. Case in point, JP Morgan a few years ago was hauled over the coals when now a senator, a woman that had worked for JP Morgan, unbeknownst to the head of JP Morgan, was explaining how difficult it would be to live at a starting salary working for JP Morgan. And she'd worked out that that guy got paid 335 times more of her basic salary. And she led him right down into the trap. And that was for a $20,000 a year job. So until companies can behave themselves, the idea of a minimum wage is a good thing, and it should be livable on. And I fully support President Biden in that. The idea that you can work 40 hours a week and not be able to put a roof over your head or food on the table is ridiculous. So yeah, so there is room for some socialism in capitalism, you know, and despite, you know, some employers saying, oh, there would be fewer jobs, really, those companies aren't employing the least number of people they can possibly get away with now. So yeah, that's a load of rubbish. So how do you fight? How do you push back? Well, you have to use what little consumer power you have. You know, buy good quality products, don't buy rubbish. Try to buy stuff second hand where you can. And then, you know, places like charity shops, and, you know, how many t-shirts do you really need? How many of them could you get in a charity shop? How many pairs of trousers could you just go, nope, not buying a new pair of trousers. This pair of trousers in a charity shop is potential landfill, and therefore, in a very economic sense, it ceases to be, so nobody profits from it. Stuff like that. Put good food into your system, because weirdly, at the moment, good food like vegetables and fruit is relatively cheap, particularly if it grows somewhere near where you are and it hasn't been needed to be flown in. So yeah, so there is going to be a segment on how to use a blender today, and I shall be talking about that in a bit. So yeah, and it's not put stuff in and press the button. There's a few extra bits on it than that. So yeah. So you basically deny them their lifeblood. You get out of debt, because that's just money creating wealth for people down the line. You know, where you can. The fewest amount of debts that you can have. And then get out of the last one. So yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. Smarter people than me will figure it out. There, you got to try. Because, you know, if you continually buy brand new stuff, you're literally empowering the uber-capitalism that currently exists. You know, before you buy something new, can you get it second hand? Can you buy it on eBay? Can you buy it at cash converters? Can you buy something similar at a charity shop? Step 2, can you make it? You know, can you make an analogue of it that does the job just as well? You know, those are things that it's worth asking yourself. Can I make it? Can I buy it second hand? And then if you have to buy it new, evaluate and see how good a job you can do. You know, can you buy something that will last you 10 years? So you're not going and buying another laptop in 18 months' time. You know, get out of this fascination with new. You know, just go, right, I stopped something becoming landfill. So I did an environmental job. I saved myself some money, so I can claw myself out of whatever debt I'm in. You know, and generally did something that was a bit morally, you know, better. You know, just bear these things in mind. Live longer. That'll piss off the oligarchs. If you stay alive for 120 years, that'll piss them off. You know, so eat better, get exercise, look after your carcass. So yeah, so we're going to snap to blendery bit. So enjoy. So today we're going to get a twofer, like I did for today. Shot some B-roll and shot my video, and I want to do the same again. So what we're going to do is make a big old smoothie and some fruit juice for later. And the cheapest fruit juice you can make is carrot and apple, in the UK anyway. So we're going to get like half a dozen reasonable sized carrots, and this is the last end of a bag that I bought a while back. And we're going to skin these. We're just going to peel them just to get off any sort of major dirt and stuff, and these have been in the fridge so they're good and cold. The idea is just to peel them as quickly as possible. I'll probably speed this up. And we're going to do the same with the apples. And then we're going to chop them up into smallish cubes, so the blender doesn't have to do quite so much work. So there's your basic raw ingredient. And what we're going to do now is introduce you to my best friend. So this is a 1000 kilowatt blender, and yeah, they're just generic, and they come with the same sort of random cups like these. And I was unfortunate or fortunate enough to get one and have it break on me. So yeah, so I bought another one, but that meant I had all the cups left over. But the one that I bought to replace it with was 1000 watts rather, or 1 kilowatt, rather than the 750 watt one. So if you really want to get like the most powerful blender, but these cup blenders are great. So I'm going to put all the fruit in there. I'm going to add some water. Not much, as you can see. And you put the blade attachment on. As tight as you can. Turn it on. You shouldn't run these for more than 60 seconds. You can see, got a nice amount of pulp. So what we need now is the smaller cup and a muslin bag. I seem to remember it did used to fit over here. No, it's not going to. But I'm going to carefully pour some of the pulp in, and then with clean hands pour your fruit pulp. Doesn't matter if you get a bit in there, into the muslin bag, and exert slowly increasing pressure on the pulp. Pour some more in. This is way less expensive than one of those stupid juice presses. So you get about a cupful. So if you put in 2 cupfuls of fruit, you'll get a cupful of juice, and it is absolutely delicious. But you can add whatever squash you want to that. And there you go. You can put that in the fridge, and you've got your juice. What we're going to do now is, I'm doing this in real time. Let's put the pulp back in the bag, and the bag can be washed in your normal laundry. And add some frozen fruit. Badly, if you want. I like to throw it all the way over the kitchen counter. add some unusual ingredients now. Let's get this a bit further back. So I'm adding 1 block of broccoli florette, a sliced mushroom, and bear in mind that this amount of fruit and stuff is essentially going to make you 2 smoothies. Again, it's a bit like trail mix. You don't want it add a teaspoon of flax seeds, and again a small teaspoon. Doing good for your omega oils and stuff like that, and for your potassium and yet more fibre. Warning, this is very high fibre. Push it down a bit. Bananas are always good, especially when they're going home a bit and they're not as fresh as they once were. It's good time to put them into a smoothie. Again, add some water. You don't have to wash up the blade if you're making a smoothie immediately after your juice. Now, if you want to drink it, this is a bit thick. If you want to drink it, and you don't want it to be, I mean, this is like ice cream at the moment. So it's a good replacement for ice cream, but I don't want ice cream, I want a drinkable smoothie. So you add some more water, even if you've got to do this 2 or 3 times to get the right consistency. And again, because it's mostly fibre, it's really and a bit of mushroom. So this is almost a complete meal, pretty much. You know, half of this is a good meal replacement. So you're essentially getting 2 smoothies. Still got a fairly thick consistency, but there you go. 2 smoothies, or at least 2 smoothies worth. That's 2 meals and a glass of awesome fruit juice for less than £1. So that's the end of today's episode. It was vaguely scripted, and yeah. So thanks for watching. Do take care. And remember, end greed, end poverty, end hate, or we all die. Speak to you soon.